Owen here says, quote, their punishment is that their minds are covered with thick darkness, and so that they are ignorant of the true nature of God. And this is the problem. The problem is that we have an issue with our minds. We're trying to figure things out, but we can't figure them out. We are in darkness. And so if you know anything about darkness, then you know you can't see nothing in the dark. I remember one time we were over in Colorado and we went to this cave, and they brought us down to the deepest part of the cave. We were doing this tour, and they had these little lanterns, so you could see everything and where you were going. And then they were like, okay, so this is, I don't know if that was the deepest part of the cave, but they were like, if we turn the lights off here, this is going to be like complete, total darkness. It's as dark as it can get. And, they had this whole little spiel on that. And so they were like, okay, and we're going to go ahead and turn the lights off. And on 3, 2, 1, and you're not going to be able to see a single thing. And they go, 3, 2, 1. And they shut the lights off. And sure enough, it was absolutely dark. To the point that you just kind of froze there. And they talked about, how if we stayed here long enough, you just go blind because you have no use for your eyes. And, they went through that whole thing. And then they're like, but some people are sometimes able to see their fingers. If you just place your thumb on the tip of your nose and wag your fingers, then you'll be able to possibly, it depends, not everyone can do it, but some people are able to see their fingers. And so, about half of us, me being one of the idiots, goes ahead and puts his thumb to the tip of his nose, and I'm wiggling my fingers. As I'm doing that, they turn the lights on, and I'm just standing there with my thumb to my nose. I'm like, they got me. They got me. So I want to say that maybe it was the dark that kind of got to me. I didn't think so well in that moment. But who knows, guys? I don't claim to be an intellectual or anything like that. But that's a funny story about being in the dark, right? You can't see what you're doing. You're not going to actually be able to see your fingers, even if you're wagging it close to your face. And so a lot of times we can tell people that are in darkness all about God. We can show them in the scriptures. We can tell them the truth. And what happens? They can't see it unless God shines the light upon the heart of man and on the mind of man, he cannot see it. And some people will say, well, then why would God blame us? And, Paul's answer to that is like, well, he's God. He makes whoever he wants to make the way that he wants to make them. But here's the thing. In Romans chapter 5, we also learned that you and I both sin. And that's the problem. You are as guilty as the next guy, because even if you're in the dark, you would rather do what's wrong in the dark. Even if you believe that possibly there's some light somewhere, I'm going to do what's wrong instead of trying to at least do what's right. We don't even try to do that. We just stay in the dark. So one of the ideas behind this is that the light of Christ is one thing, okay? And then the atheistic delusions are something else. These ideas that have come upon our society and rampantly came after the year 2000 with the, so-called new atheism. If you know anything about the new atheism, you know that the four guys that were kind of the main guys that are the most popular guys were Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and Daniel Dennett, okay? And these guys were just going around saying all kinds of crazy, ridiculous things about religion itself, even attacking Christianity. You can find their books out there. I have some of them here that I've read, and we're not going to get into exactly what it is, but we know there was this major push of new atheism. And there's some articles out there, if you read them, where they say, now there's a new atheism, or, the new atheism has died. The movement has died. Richard Dawkins now is not liked by a lot of people that he was loved before because, he went against gender ideology. And so there's a lot of craziness, and we don't want to get into the nitty gritty of all of that. But even though the new atheism perhaps is not as popular as it was just, a short, 5-10 years ago, the idea of a godless society is still pretty attractive to a lot of people. Well, why is it attractive? Because they're in the dark. That's all they know. And so even when we talk about the light, or we try to think about the light, we express it in ways, if we don't have Christ, that is pretty, that sounds good, that we would even say, I think I agree with that. I think I'm okay with that. But is it really truth? Well, there's a quote that I came across here from Russell Brand, of all people. And I'm not sure. I've seen some of the Russell Brand videos, but I'm not sure exactly what he believes or what he doesn't believe. So I'm not going to pretend here to know that. But here's something he says that I found interesting. And I wanted to use it sort of as a, just a launching pad for everything else that I'm going to talk about here today with John Owen's book, The Glory of Christ. Here's the quote from Russell Brand. He says, when it says in the Old Testament, worship no other gods other than me, or worship no other gods than me, the implication I offer is that we are a species that worships. And if you do not access the divine, you will worship the mundio. You will worship the profane. You will worship your own identity. You will worship your belongings. You will worship the template laid before you by culture that wants you, and then he says not wants you, but gets you distracted and relatively dumb, okay? Now, I don't know if I messed that up just a little bit. Russell, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to misquote you, but I got that from a video that has been kind of swirling around in the internet. You guys can probably find it if you Google it. And maybe we'll just, put a link in the description for it. But he was interesting that I read. I wonder if Russell Brand knows that what the Old Testament said is actually also said in the New Testament, okay? And we're going to try to kind of show you guys that here in a few minutes as we continue. But even when we want to talk about the divine, we do say things that sound nice and sound great and even have a lot of truth in them. I think that statement by Russell Brand has a lot of truth in it. The meaning of life, as I've said before, is, in the Westminster Confession says this, is to glorify and enjoy God. Okay, that's the meaning of life. And the opposite of that is to not worship the devil, as some people would imagine, but is to actually glorify and enjoy yourself. And if you know anything about, the world that we live in, everybody is about glorifying self and enjoying self nowadays. And, one of the things that I say is that's the first step to hell.